Hey folks, it's a Broken Meeple anthology. Yes, I told you that these anthologies were still going to continue every now and again, mainly when I have too many games to review, which I really do at this point, but also if I wanted to theme them around something. Now, the next one I'm going to do is a Cosmos themed one. So I've got Roll for Adventure, Tribes, Kahuna, might even do Targi as a bonus. What else did they give me? They gave me another, Imhotep the Jewel. You know, I'm going to put those into one anthology video devoted to Cosmos games. But the main reason for the anthologies is to do little micro games, expansions, things that don't really warrant their whole video. And, you know, these ones I can just cover nice and quickly because there's only so much to them. So with that in mind, let's make a start. You know what? I'm going to get that one off the top there. The box has been a decorative item for a bit. Mystic Vale Harmony. This is the newest expansion to a brilliant card crafting game from John DeClaire and AEG. This is the game where you have a deck of 20 cards always, and you effectively buy these advancements and create the cards you want. So it's not quite deck building, it's card building, and your deck never gets any bigger or smaller, but you get to put loads of cool effects all over your cards. I love it. The Steam and Android version is fantastic as a port, but even the card game, I still have it right down there. You know, you might be able to see the massive conclave box I've got. Well, this is another expansion. However, it doesn't add anything drastically new. This is mainly just more stuff. So more stuff is a good thing, you know, what's the problem with that? But the only thing that I would say is actually new in here is that it gives you the opportunity to use the starting advancements in here instead of the ones from the base set. I don't see how that's a massive deal, and to be honest, once you've got a lot of the cards, you kind of aren't going to spend the time sorting out specific ones like that. You're just going to pull out as many different ones as you can because they're all mixed together. But that's not a massive deal with this. But otherwise, you're getting a lot of other cards, and you effectively get two things that you had. I think two things. Was it two? I'm trying to remember exactly. Yeah, you get some leaders and you get some more amulets, but leaders already had an expansion, Veil of the Wild, and amulets I think were in the one before that one. Was it the Veil of Magic? I don't know, it was like, there's so many of them now. But basically we've seen these things before. The amulets were basically a token that you drafted at the start of the game, and it gave you a special effect. But in order to charge it, you had to like spoil. So you could choose to basically recharge your special power, use it, and then when you spoil again, it recharges. They're nice, they're easy to throw into each game. You can draft them at the start of the game, so if you think some are more powerful than others, then you can draft those ones. But of course, there may be some negative or positive victory points for having them, so obviously the more powerful ones will mean that you've got to make up for more points. The leaders are fantastic. I mean, I love the leaders. When they appeared, brilliant. You shove them into one of your blank cards and it gives you a special power, but if you can spend enough mana or fulfill the condition, you can flip the leader over and it becomes a more powerful version of itself. With the, 8 in here, as well as all the other leaders we've had in other expansions, there are so many of them now I've lost count. You're always going to get a different leader each game really, and they're all lots of different cool mixed abilities. So it's nice to have more of them, but again, this is nothing new. We have seen it before. So I suppose if you have not picked up those earlier expansions, you can pick up this one as the most recent and get a little bit of each one. It's like, oh, you know, leaders are quite cool. I wish I had more than 8. All right, well, let's go back and pick up Veil of the Wild then. Oh, the amulets are nice, but I'd like a few more. Alright, fine, let's go back and pick up Veil of Magic then. Other than that though, it's basically more cards. Pretty simple. I can't even really rank it. It's another expansion. I don't want it to introduce more stuff really in terms of rules, because there's already enough as it is. I feel that, yeah, more content is good. It's, like I say, I can't even really give it a number. Give it a 7, I guess. It does what it says on the tin. It gives you more content, but the main thing that sort of tries to lay on you with the whole, oh yeah, you can use these cards instead of those cards for your starting advancements, big deal. I don't think anybody's really paying attention to that. So more content, still decent, don't need the box, so that can be chucked away, no longer need it. But still solid, more stuff. So next up, what are we going to do? I think we'll move on to a big Memoir 44 New Flight Plan. Now, I had to actually go to like a friend's house and also a game cafe in order to get the game to play this, because I don't actually own Memoir 44. What? Not that I think it's a bad game, I think it's a really solid game, but it's a 2-player only game, it's war, it's not my favourite theme in the world, but it's mainly because it's 2-player only. I just can't get 2-player games to the table very often. I mean, you know, Star Wars Rebellion, case in point, and innovation. And to have another one with all these expansions, it just wasn't something I was going to find cost effective. But I wanted to try the expansion out because this is essentially, I can't remember what it used to be called in the original Memoir 44, so I'm going to assume you have no knowledge of that. But this basically introduces aircraft. You now have planes, and my god, they're nice planes. I do like these. You know, you get these little, like, really tiny ones. Like I say, I don't know if it will bother to focus on these. I think they're too small, but how about this one? Big... Ow, break my lens. But, you know, these are some solid plane miniatures. I mean, you can see the panel lines on there. These are solid. This is one of the biggest ones in there, and it's a decent affair. You know, you bear in mind the box is got a lot of them in here. So, component quality, sound. It's typical Days of Wonderness. But what does New Flight Plan really give you? It gives you a bucket load more scenarios. It gives you aircraft and the rules to play them. That's pretty much the deal. But what it manages to do is that it introduces a new tier to the game, a new level to the game, without overcomplicating it. If you know how to play Memoir 44 already, you're going to easily be able to integrate this into the game. In fact, you could probably integrate this into the game from day one, because there really isn't a lot of extra stuff you need to know. I mean, the rulebook for this is, you know, a fairly thin affair, and most of it is just explaining what the various fighters were in the war, so it's more of a history lesson. But other than that, there's only really a few pages in terms of how do an air units function. So easy enough to include without too much convolution. Although, there is one thing that's going to rub some people the wrong way. It irks me a little bit, but I'm kind of okay with it because it does streamline the system. There's a rule in here about line of sight, where the aircraft block line of sight to ground units.
Right.
You're probably thinking, well, hang on a minute, how on earth can I not see that tank over there when there's an aircraft miles in the sky above me? How does that make thematic sense? It doesn't, unless you really, really think about it. This is a bit of a thematic disconnect in the game, and it is going to irk some people, but you could argue that maybe you're so preoccupied with the aircraft, or maybe the fact that they're flying over makes you kind of go, oh, duck and cover, that you're not concentrating on the enemy in front of you. That is probably the best explanation I can find for why it makes sense, but the main reason they've kept it that way is to streamline it and make it nice and simple to learn. So you have to sort of, which one do you prefer? The more thematic element, which would probably require GMT to get involved, or simplified that you can play with anyone? I'm fine with it, I just accept it, even though I admit it's a bit of a thematic disconnect here and there. But you do get a pretty decent amount of content. I mean, you've got a deck of cards that you order these things around, a lot of models. You probably are going to need to keep the box. Well, actually, no. If you don't want to keep them in the plastic inlays, you could get rid of this box and probably keep everything in the Memoir 44 box. But on top of that, you also get a nice lot of scenarios. Nice new booklet with, how is it? I've lost count. What was it? 21 new scenarios. There's a lot in here. I mean, you've got all sorts. However, a word of warning. The first few scenarios are Western Front. So, you know, these are like, oh yeah, I can use these with the base game, no problem. But then you get a little bit further on and you realise that you're soon going to need a Mediterranean theatre. You're going to need the Mediterranean desert map theatre, you know. You're going to need Eastern Front with a few of these. So it's compatible with other expansions, but if you don't have all the expansions, this is going to give you some limited use to begin with. So this will certainly perk up your game if you're a casual player, but I think if you're getting into Memoir 44 and you're willing to buy out for this expansion, because it's not the cheapest thing in the world, because you are getting some pretty cool miniatures, it's a very expensive expansion, you're going to have to be somebody who really is getting into Memoir 44. But that being said, I thought this was a great amount of fun. It was, you know, you've got ground troops, you've got tanks, now you've got aircraft. And they do cool things, they do bombing runs, and they stick around. So it's not like it just goes, and that's it. You know, it's gone, it's out of the way. They now hang around and they can do other things. So it's almost like you've added another unit to the board, and it just gives you more stuff to work with. So it's a solid expansion. I just think that maybe it's, like I say, it's a tad on the pricey side. It's going to require other expansions to get the full value out of this. And you do have that one rule that is a bit of a, I'm not too sure. But if you can get over that rule aspect, and you're an avid collector of Memoir 44, this is going to be like a 10 out of 10 expansion for you easily. For me, the rule doesn't bug me that much, and you know, I don't own other stuff. I had to restrict myself to the base set scenarios, but like I say, just because of that doesn't make me want to dock it too much. I think this is a solid 9 for an expansion. If you are a Memoir 44 fan, you definitely want to get this expansion. It is solid and, like I say, great models, 21 scenarios if you own the other maps in that. It's compatible with all of them. Solid, well done. Just, like I say, you might want to think about your wallet afterwards. Next up, let's do 3 little micro games before I get to my last one. First up, basically, I've been sent a bunch of these little micro filler games from Coiled Spring Games. Technically, these are yellow games, but they're in their catalogue. And I've got High Risk, Schotten Totten, and Nessos. So let's start with the easiest of the lot so far, and that is High Risk. This is basically the same level as something like Zombie Dice or Ink and Gold. It is straight up a push your luck dice game. You're trying to get your mountaineers up to the top of this mountain, and you're rolling dice with symbols on it. And the idea is that you keep rolling until you decide to chicken out, or you push on to hope that you can keep rolling nothing but the climb symbols and not fall, for example. So if you carry on and you're good, then you get to boost your way up and you're moving closer and closer to the summit. If you fall, then you got to go back down, you got to race back up, get back down, race back up, and of course other players are blocking your spaces and you know you're racing against them. It is straight up a push your luck race with the same kind of complexity level as something like Deep Sea Adventure. This is kind of like your alternative. If you thought Deep Sea Adventure was a bit expensive and you weren't a fan of the fact that basically every time you play that game you just dive and die on a regular basis, then this is a nice little like alternative. It is nothing stellar though. You know, it is literally what it is, a 20-minute push your luck game. Not the most difficult thing to design or make, really. And you're comparing this to something like Zombie Dice. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Zombie Dice. I don't tend to go for these push your luck games unless there's a lot of other things in there. Like, say, Celestia introduces bluffing into it, which is a bit more interesting. But with this one, it is basically like a Zombie Dice variant. You know, in Zombie Dice, you just roll a bunch of dice, try to get the brains, try not to get too many shotguns in your face. Well, this one's pretty much the deal. Try to get the clouds, so good weather, I forget what the symbol is. Yeah, clouds and that, lightning bolts, and don't roll like bad stuff. What's the worst one? No, you want to get those. You don't want the lightning bolts. So it does what it says on the tin. It's a simple push your luck game, but not something I'm going to see people go out of their way for. I think this will suit a game cafe who just wants to keep a nice, easy game on their shelf, but I can't see this really selling unless you're like into these cheap games and you want to get something dirt cheap for like a family vacation or something. So for me, it barely squeaks out at 5. It's an average game. It's nothing stellar, but it's nothing bad either. It functions. The dice and the mountaineers are half decent components. It's decent artwork. It just does what it says on the tin. It just doesn't really do much more than that. That's High Risk. Then you got Nessos. Nessos kind of takes the concept of cockroach poker, which, oh god, can I get it off the shelf? Come on. Cockroach Poker, which I have to keep on with a rubber band. Love this game. Such a fun bluffing game. I love it. Lee, who runs Dice Portsmouth, doesn't know what he's talking about because he hates this game. What does he know? But Nessos basically takes that concept and adds a competitive element to it. You are effectively trying to collect cards with different values in order to score points and win the game. But you have to give a card to other players, and it has that same thing as Cockroach Poker, where you take a card from your hand, give it to someone face down and say, this is a 3, this is a 7. And there are some negative cards in here that you don't want to get, but you can choose to lie about the number that you've given them, and of course with the bad cards you're lying at your teeth anyway. But the idea is that the 1, 2 and 3 cards are worth more points if you can get a set of them, otherwise you're just counting the value of the card, so high value is better. But that's essentially it. You give the card to someone and they can either take it, give it back to you, or they can look at it, add a card from their hand to the pile and pass both of them on to another player. So some other player down the line might end up with about 3 or 4 cards in front of them, but not a good thing if you get those negative cards, because you get too many of those and you're out of the game entirely. So there is player elimination in this. but it's dirt quick. It's a 20-minute micro filler game, and it's actually a decent amount of fun if you like bluffing games. You have to definitely get into that whole element of I'm lying out of my teeth or having a bit of fun, but it's kind of basically, do you like cockroach poker? If the answer is yes, why do you like it? Do you like it because it's not got a competitive element, it's just don't be the loser? Do you like it because of that bluffing element of, oh, I'll give you this card and, you know, I'll tell you what I say and, oh, do you believe me? Do you believe me? Oh, you get the chicken out. Oh, look at it. And then you try and lie yourself. Is it that element you like? Then you'll like this one. If it's more that you like the fact that it's not competitive, then don't grab this because it is fully competitive. But Nessos, artwork-wise, is okay. It's nothing to write home about. The cards are fairly generic. They just basically tell you what they need to do on the tin. Other than that, there's not really anything else in here. It is a 1 out of 4 star difficulty game. You know, that's how simple it is. And if you imagine that High Risk is also a 1-star difficulty game, you can tell how easy this one is as well. But overall, I mean, I still give it about a 6. It's a half decent, you know, cockroach poker variant. In fact, maybe 6, might even bump it up to a 7 actually. It's decent enough for a micro game. If you like this, you'll like this as well. I just wouldn't necessarily think you would own both. You just might own one or the other. Which one do you want? The competitive or the slightly more party game version? That's kind of your decision, but Nessos I thought was pretty solid for a light bluffing game. So the third one in the line, Schotten Totten. This one is a sort of reprint of Battle Line with much more colourful artwork and better components, and definitely the artwork in this is a highlight. It's very colourful, very picturesque. I mean, this is yellow doing what they do best. Game-wise though, there's something wrong with me, I have to admit. I'm definitely in the minority here, but I've played Battle Line. I have played this one. It is essentially the same game. I can't remember if the tactic cards are a bit different, but essentially they're the same game. You effectively have these stones in a big row and you're trying to control each of them on your side. You're playing numerical cards in front of the row in front of you, but you're trying to get sets in front of a stone so that the opponent cannot possibly beat you. You're effectively playing free card poker tug of war with each other. So I'll put down a 5, he puts down a 6, I put down a 7, he puts down a 5. And it's like he could make 3 of a kind, I could make a running straight, but can he potentially get a better hand than I have, in which case I can't claim the stone. What you're trying to do is put the cards down in such a way that eventually you can prove the opponent cannot physically claim the stone off you. Like whatever they put down doesn't matter, the stone is yours. The second that happens, boom, you've got the stone, you're part way to the victory. You're drawing from a deck of cards at random, so it's not like you have a huge amount of information to go on other than what's already laid out. And you have a tactic card variant, which is kind of like advanced mode, where you have these cards that are super powerful, can really change the game state a little bit too much, but you can throw these in as an additional card to draw. Some people say they should play with the tactic cards all the time. I'm not entirely sure because they're very swingy, like really swingy. I have seen games won and lost purely because of a lucky drawn tactics card, and that can really sour the end game where somebody just gets a lucky break and does that. It's not something I'm a huge fan of. But the game itself is fine. I mean, you're basically just playing free card poker in front of each other, and you've only got so much information to go on. I mean, I put down a 5 and a 6, he puts down an 8, and it's like, well, does he have all the other 8s? I don't know. Does he have all the blues to make a flush? I don't know. I have nothing on. All I have is my hand and what's on the board. You've got a equal distribution of cards, but you're like, well, I'm kind of guessing. What else am I supposed to do with this? And maybe I just don't get it that much. I don't know. I mean, I've read up on it. I've read up on a few sort of people that actually put strategy guides out for this. It's kind of shocking, but this is definitely one that I think I'm in the minority in. Maybe I'm not the target audience. The game is fine. I don't think it's a bad game. I think that there's a good design to this. It's Reiner Knizia, and it's like in the 100 and something. The battle line is like 100 and something on Board Game Geek. It is a highly rated, regarded game, and this is a much nicer looking version of it. So if you are interested in Battle Line, or you've played it and it's like, oh, I want to buy it but I can't find it anywhere, then grab Schotten Totten. It looks 100 times better and is in a nice small box and dirt cheap. But for some reason, I just can't get this game. I really don't. It's not a strategy thing as well. I just get bored playing it. I'm just playing numerical cards in front of me and hoping that I draw well and he doesn't draw well. Playing, you kind of feel like, well, where am I supposed to put this card? Should I put it here? Should I put it here? I don't know. I'll start on the new stone, and then he starts on that one, and then I start on a different stone, and he carries on with that one. And it's like, oh, right, well, the cards in my hand can't physically beat him. What am I supposed to do now? It's just, there's probably subtleties to this game that I'm just not getting, but I just don't get enough enjoyment from this to play it. So for me, this, for me personally, ranks like 4 or 5. I'm not a fan of it. It's average at best for me. But I'm going to say that I'm in the minority there. And if you are at all interested in Reiner Knizia's style of microgames, and if you have played Battle Line, this is identical with better artwork, then I certainly recommend you give this one a try. Give it a try. It's dirt cheap, 2-player only. So if you want a portable 2-player game for you and your spouse, give it a try, because there's an element of getting into each other's head. There's definitely some tactics in this game, a fair bit of swinginess, and a bit of luck involved, despite the fact the game claims to be a... Oh no, it doesn't claim to be a strategy one. This was before they started doing that rating system. But it's decent enough. I just think I prefer other games in this minigame lineup, like Welcome to the Dungeon and so forth. So, like I say, decent enough game, I'm sure. Just not for me. If something doesn't gel right with me, I'm not the biggest fan of it. So, with those, man, what have we got? 3 of those, 1 of those, and that. Oh, yeah. Saved the best for last. I wish. Oh, my God. I don't have a box to show you, so you can just have a picture. There you go. But, yeah. Time Stories. I used to love this game. I mean, I still like it, but I used to love it. When I played the first one, I'm like, this system's amazing. Yes, okay, typo issues and an FAQ is needed, but oh, I loved it. This idea that you were going back and taking over a receptacle, a person, and you were playing through these panoramic cards with a story and puzzles and rich theme, great artwork. It was amazing, and I loved it. Then it started releasing cases where they were kind of up and down, up and down. Some I really liked, like Endurance, and I kind of liked Estrella Drive, even though it was kind of a side thing. And the Marcy case was pretty decent. Wasn't a fan of Prophecy. Under the Mask was a bit dull, and the Pirate one was a bit too combat heavy, although that was okay. But we now end with Madame. Madame. I have played through this expansion. I have now finished and played all of the Time Stories expansions. When I first started Time Stories, I rated it a 10. It was like, oh my god, I love it. After playing all these scenarios and ending on that note, it's probably about a 5. The expansion itself, Madame, is probably about a 4. Maybe a 5. Probably a 5 as well, actually. It's average. But, oh my god, this one is just the biggest. This is the... If you're trying to do a teaching video on how not to end a series, how not to have a cliffhanger, how not to end an arc, this is the poster child for it. If this wasn't a family-friendly show, I would basically put a clip of Angry Joe right here now with his classic starter line of, "You done, whoop it up." Because that's exactly what Madame does to the plot. It screws it up right royally. All those bits that you knew in the past that you were... Oh yeah, probably should have prefaced spoilers, but I'm sure you'll see the tag on the screen that says spoiler alert. I'm spoiling a lot here. But it's like, oh my god, it takes all those bits that you found in the previous game. Like, oh my god, there's villains that we could come up. Oh, is this girl important to the overarching plot? Oh, what's it all leading up to? It's like a big Doctor Who-esque plot arc leading up. What's it going to do? What's it going to do? Absolutely boggle. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Absolutely boggle. All that stuff you were excited about doesn't matter whatsoever. You get to the ending and it forces this stupid code puzzle on you, which relies you to have collected all the cubes from the previous games, of which one of them has 2 in there, that you don't even know there's 2 in there unless you play through it twice. You're supposed to have collected them all, and then you figure out this weird puzzle with them, and then you put them together, it generates a big code, and you go to a website with a QR code, and it's like, okay, what's it going to be? It's going to reveal the last bit of the plot, and it's a giant friggin' advert. It's an advert for the next series of Time Stories, the standalone Revolution stuff. Are you kidding me? Pathetic, Space Cowboys. Absolutely pathetic. You know, to basically end your series on a giant advert, that is worse than sequel baiting. That is just, I didn't care, or I didn't design this well, or I just completely wrote myself into a corner and the writing just went, you know what, can't be bothered. I mean, this is Game of Thrones Season 8 level of bad endings, okay? You know, love the Game of Thrones series, but my god, did Season 8 just basically punch us all in the face, didn't it? But this is on par with that. It's like the writers of Time Stories basically went, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to go off and make something different. And let's just get it out there. Ay, it's so bad. And the episode itself is fine. It's got the cool artwork, it's got the stuff, you know, you're going into it, but it throws those short runs on you that are just really irritating because you're constantly having to go, oh, do a little bit there, reset, reset, reset. Hello, when we were talking about the fact that we didn't want to repeat everything over and over and over again in previous scenarios, why did you take that and basically make that the focus of the game? That's not listening to customer feedback at all, that's basically trolling us. And it was fun for a bit, and it threw in some interesting ideas about, oh yeah, we can now take over other receptacles. Well, we did that in Under the Mask, and it did it better in that one because you could do it mid-run. Here, you have to do it at the start of a run. So frequently, you basically go, right, we're in. Right, we've passed this test, that's good. Let's go to this location. Oh, we need this person, or we need to get 6 in this rating in order to pass. Oh, well, restart the run, and you carry on again, and then you get past that bit, and it's like, oh, I can't get past this unless we have this particular no-ball now. All right, rinse and repeat.
5 minutes later.
And you constantly are forced into this situation where basically if you're unlucky enough to not pick up the particular character you need, you're screwed, you need to do another run. And eventually, the game basically gets bored of itself and disregards half of the restrictions you had. So it's like saying, well, you've taken a while now you can just pretty much do what you like. You basically just given us permission to cheat. You rickrolled us like crazy. Oh my word. You know, the story was nonsensical for most of it. It's like, why is this happening? I mean, it was fun at first, but then you realise that your overarching story plot of getting Bob's parents to, you know, meet each other in the past, we found it out because we found a couple of clues that made us think, oh, this is what it's on about. Yes, it makes sense. But watch the Dice Tower's live play of it. And think about your own experiences. If you don't find specific cards in the game, you will have no clue what it is you're doing at all until about 2 seconds before the end where you reveal that was what the point of the episode was. And while you're still reeling from that, you have to then be faced with that stupid cube puzzle and a giant advert. Literally, the only solace I could take from this entire episode was that I got to enjoy it with the girls on the game shelf. You know, go check out their stuff. You know, lovely ladies. Playing with them is always good fun. And we've been playing the Time Story stuff from day one. This has been our committed, we're going to go to each other's house and play it. And we live a fair distance from each other, so it's an event. But I had great fun with them. We crack jokes, we have a laugh. So it's not like my entire Time Stories experience was wasted. You know, they've been great fun. But man, plot-wise, it just really took a downturn here. Really just kicked you in the face. But, just for that to happen. Literally, the one bit of solace I got, other than obviously playing with them, was that I got to see Bob die. And not just die, I got to see his head blown off in somewhat gory fashion. It's like, okay, we just got your parents to meet. You're alive now, Bob. And oh, it's like, yeah. There's no Monty Python like I'm not dead coming out of this one. You know, it's he's dead. He's so dead. It's not gonna go there. But you didn't exactly give him a cool send off. You just basically said, oh, you hate Bob? Well, here he is, dead. As much as I'm glad of that, because Bob was an annoying character, lazy writing again. Game of Thrones Season 8 all over again. It's just, will I play the second season of this? Probably. I'm sure I'll get a review copy of the Time Stories Revolution stuff, and I will play them. They're standalone, which means I can play them solo if I have to, or I'll play it with the Game Shelf Girls again, and I'll probably enjoy them, I hope. But, like I say, Time Stories went from a 10 down to something like a 5 or 6 with that last episode. Most of the time it was teetering around the 7-8 mark, like I was enjoying it, and I enjoyed most of the scenarios, and we had a good time, us free playing it. But it really sank in the last couple, and that Madame one was just the biggest punch in the... Oh, God. Ay. Needed to get that out of my system. So, like I say, a very disappointing end to a decent series overall. Started as a 10, ends on a 5 or a 6. This expansion on its own, 5 for the scenario, 1 for the way it ends. I mean, literally, this is so bad, I'd rate the ending a 1. It is just a kick in the teeth in every way possible. I do hope that if they're rebooting this whole thing with the standalone system and Revolutions, that they just try and wipe the slate clean. If you're not going to tell us what happens with these characters, why the villains were there, how any of this previous story arc makes sense, if you're not going to tell us, then don't do it in the second season. You know, do it, just wipe the slate clean. Just say, right, you're done and dusted with Series 1 of Time Stories. Here's Series 2, standalone, blank slate, and then we'll give those a try and erase our minds of what you did with this one. You know, it just hurts, okay? It hurts. Game of Thrones Season 8 hurt. This hurts as well. So, yeah. Hey, 6 games. Well, 3 games, 3 expansions. So, you know, hopefully you got some insight there. You know, certainly I think you should give that Memoir 44 one a try if you're a fan of the game. Definitely, if you want more content for Mystic Vale, give it a try. Madame, it's alright, but, you know, if you just want to play another Time Stories episode, then great. But don't expect anything great from the ending, although to be fair, with the spoiler warnings, you're only watching that bit of the episode if you've seen it, so if you've played it. So I guess you just got to enjoy me have a mental breakdown at that point. As for these 3, you know, Schotten Totten and Nessos and High Risk, they do what they say on the tin. They're all very cheap, very nice looking micro games. Push your luck at the most basic level you can pretty much get. Tactical card game, which sadly isn't for me, but, you know, could, for a Reiner Knizia game, if you're a fan of his work in that, I reckon this will be a hit for many of you, probably one of the best in the line for you, in fact. And my personal favourite of the 3, Nessos, gives me what Cockroach Poker does, but gives me a competitive element. I like bluffing games, this is dirt simple, and each one is kind of like a 20-minute affair. So, like I say, 3 games, 3 expansions. Next Anthology will be devoted to Cosmos/Devere games. They're kind of a collaboration that was at the expo, so I've got a lot of games to do for them, but there's plenty more reviews going up. I am very soon going to get those solo plays underway. There's plenty of top 10s to do. I got a lot of content to put out, and that's before I get to August, when it's effectively time for, my 6-year anniversary, which means, yep, you guessed it, Top 100. It's coming again. Probably in a much more constrained format than last time, you know, so maybe 4 videos talking about 25 games a piece, or 5 videos talking about 20, and they won't be like, oh, here's the game. I might get the game off the shelf, or I might just leave it, but, you know, with pictures. But I'm not going to spend ages talking about each game. I'll try and zoom through them a bit quicker, because believe me, it takes a long time to do those top 100s when you're trying to do other games as well. So, like I say, a lot of stuff to look forward to. So that's it for me. I'm going to go west to my weary head and cool down a little bit, because by God, it's still hot and it's already dark outside. It's just like, I don't like the summer. I'm much more an autumn and winter person. You know, put me back in Poland where it's -6. I'll probably be more comfortable there, to be honest, than I am now. So take care. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple episode. And whether you love to fly around in planes or you're going to have a mental breakdown like me as well, just remember, Goose Rubber, it's only a game. Take care. See you soon, guys.